One of the busiest players in corporate Australia, with the broadest view of what's happening in the economy, is James MacKenzie. As chairman of Pacific Brands, he presided over the controversial decision to shift the retailer's remaining manufacturing base to China 2 years ago. As well, he chairs Gloucester Coal, which is facing uncertain times with a carbon tax looming large. And also he chairs the big listed property group Mirvac. And he also played a big role in the public sector turnaround of Victoria's indebted traffic accident and workers' compensation schemes, although he did lighten his load a bit this week by stepping down from the WorkCover Authority. I caught up with James MacKenzie this week. Well, James MacKenzie, let's start with Pacific Brands, of which you're chairman, and just soon after you became chairman, Pacific Brands closed down its Australian manufacturing, moved to China. Now the question, I guess now, a couple of years later, is did that work?
Of course it worked, Alan. I think if Pacific Brands had continued to manufacture 40% of its product in Australia, the rate at which we would have gone out the back door would have accelerated as the costs of production in Australia increased. Now, I know there's a lot of focus at the moment on increases in production costs in China, but that's increases in production costs in coastal China and Guangdong province around the Pearl River Delta around Shanghai. And the Chinese government have decided in their determinative way that high-end manufacturing is going to be the story for coastal China, for that part of China that urbanised first, and that low-end manufacturing is going to move west. And we're well positioned. We've got operations in China. We're on the ground in China, and we can monitor those trends. And the costs of manufacturing our products, the further you go west in China, decreases.
But aren't you being squeezed in rising costs, and also the problems in the Australian economy, so falling demand here?
Well, the Australian economy, it depends about which segment in the Australian economy you're talking about.
Well, you're in the branded retail sector, aren't you?
Yes,
which is struggling.
But the segment where the demand is coming from, Alan. And people talk about a two-speed economy. I suspect everybody will accept, once you get down to the sort of analysis you do for this sort of discussion, that it's 5, 6, 7 speed. And it depends where you are. If you're retailing to people who are in the mineral services area, they're doing very well nicely. People in the resources sector, the closer you go down to perhaps those people who live in the electorates that are going to determine the outcome of the next federal election, they're doing it tougher. And they're making more cautious decisions about their retail spending. So retailers are doing it tougher. And obviously as a supplier to retailers, that's where we're feeling the pressure.
And your share price would suggest that you're still going out the back door. I mean, it was...
Well, we're not going out the back door. I don't think that's fair. I think that...
No, you said it would have accelerated the back door. You're going out the back door earlier. Yeah. And I'm just saying, I mean, there are some in the market perhaps who still think you're in trouble, or at least you're not growing anymore.
The areas that we're focusing on at Pacific Brands and the areas that we are generating confidence in the market is we're concentrating on top-line sales growth, continuing to optimise our costs and rationalising the number of brands that are in our stable. Now, you just can't click your fingers and do that overnight. I think Sue Morford's done a terrific job to take on what she had to do to shut down our Australian manufacturing operations, which frankly should have been shut down 10 years ago. The benefits from this sort of major transformation initiative do take a while to come through. And we're seeing them, and I think you'll continue to see them over the next couple of years.
Do you think there's any future at all for Australian manufacturing?
Look, in the areas that I see, the way in which costs are structured in low-end manufacturing, no. I don't have any contemporary experience in high-end manufacturing. I'd like to think that as a country that we're smart enough to have the capability and the technology to compete in high-end manufacturing, but I'm just not across the issues.
You're also chairman of Gloucester Coal. Big debate at the moment about the carbon tax. The coal mining industry is kind of pretty alarmed about it. How do you feel about it?
Well, it's a personal view, this isn't a Gloucester Coal view. I think that it's absurd to suggest going forward that we're not all going to be operating in a world economy where we're not going to be carbon constrained. It's not something that obviously politicians are going to be comfortable in saying. We've got to look at it frankly in terms of, in per capita terms, we're one of the wealthiest nations on earth. Also in per capita terms, we are one of the most significant contributors to the carbon problem. So, I applaud the initiatives that Malcolm Turnbull and Kevin Rudd took to address the issue. I applaud the initiatives that Julia Gillard's taking to address the issue. We haven't seen the final form in which this is going to work. So having definitive statements on the effect it's going to have on the coal industry or on any other particular sector of the Australian economy, I think is just a little bit too early.
Well, they were sort of almost negotiating it, say, in public.
I was going to say consultation bordering on negotiation. Let's see what the final form is. Business has got to remember, everybody's got to remember that minority government with the federal parliament structured the way it is must be a hell of a challenge. It's all very well to be critical, but and the composition of the Senate after the 1st of July, it's all very well for people to say the government should be doing this, we've got a minority government. That's what the electoral system gave us. And it's a minority government that, despite what people may hope or may look for, is inevitably going to last a full term because of the position that the crossbenchers have.
Now, you're stepping down at the end of this month as a Director of WorkCover. You've had a long and strong, very successful career in both WorkCover and the TAC, both of which you turned around. Tell us about how you did that.
I remember Steve Bracks in opposition specifically avoided the opportunity to take political potshots at what we were doing in the early days at TAC. If he had, this never would have got going. But to make the work, the WorkCover scheme in Victoria has thrown off 5 consecutive premium reductions. It's a fully funded scheme. It's the first time a WorkCover scheme in Australia has ever been fully funded without legislative change to reduce injured workers' benefits. And it's been done because the people who represent employers, the employer organisations, and the people who represent the employees, the unions, have worked collaboratively with the authority to make the hard decisions. It's been a good result.
Yeah, but so what were the
hard decisions were making sure that when you had people receiving benefits which weren't assisting in their rehabilitation, physiotherapy benefits or other paramedical benefits that weren't assisting in their rehabilitation, those benefits ceased. That's an example of bringing the common law scheme under control. Stopping this age-old process of blaming the plaintiff lawyers for everything that was wrong with the WorkCover scheme, and recognising that the accountability lay with the WorkCover authority.
It always seemed to me at the time that you came along with the insight that it's worthwhile for the TAC and WorkCover to invest in safety campaigns, which were sort of seen broadly as being, how can I put it, for community benefit. Actually, they were for the authorities' benefit.
Alan, there was always a link between the amount of money that was invested in the costs of those advertisements, whether they be TAC advertisements or WorkCover investments, a link between the cost of those and the benefit in terms of fewer claims coming in the front door.
Thanks for joining us, James MacKenzie.
Thanks, Alan.